After finishing the synthesis and release of thyroid hormones, now we are going to talk about physiological functions of thyroid hormones. As you know, thyroid hormones are highly lipid soluble. That's why these hormones affects all our cells by activating transcription factors. These transcription factors are going to increase our metabolic activities. So in general, thyroid hormones is going to increase everything. The metabolic processes, the activity of cardiovascular system, central nervous system, growth, etc. And the last note I want to talk about is that triiodothyronine, which is called T3, is more active than T4. So we can consider T4 as a pro-hormone that will be converted eventually to T3 before acting in our cells. Now let's spend a few time on discussing the signaling pathway of thyroxine. Now thyroxine, after entering the target cell by simple diffusion, because it's small molecule that is lipid soluble, it will be deionized and converted to T3, which is called triiodothyronine. Triiodothyronine will bind to its intranuclear receptor that's going to make a heterodimer with the retinoid X receptor. This dimer will bind a certain area in the DNA. This dimer is going to work as a transcription factor that enhances the transcription of many messenger RNAs and production of many proteins and enzymes that will increase our metabolic activities. So it's going to increase the metabolism in general, the cardiovascular system, other systems like endocrine and GI system. It is going also to affect central nervous system development and musculoskeletal system development. Let's talk about these functions in details. As you see in this figure, thyroid hormone affects in cellular metabolism, growth, metabolic activity, and other organ systems. Let's start with cellular metabolism. Thyroid metabolic hormone increases the activity of sodium-potassium pump, firstly by increasing the expression of this pump. It also increases the permeability of the plasma membrane, reducing the membrane potential and therefore activation of this pump. The activation of sodium-potassium pump is going to produce more and more thermal energy, and that will be converted to heat eventually. Other effect of thyroid hormone is increasing mitochondrial number and activity. Increasing mitochondrial number and activity will increase the process of oxidative phosphorylation and therefore heat production. So, as we said previously, thyroid metabolic hormone increase the heat production and has a very important thermoregulatory effect. Okay. The second major function of thyroid metabolic hormone is the growth. Remember when we talked about the growth hormone, we said that there is a permissive interaction between growth hormone, insulin, and thyroxine. Okay, thyroxine increases the metabolic activity and catabolism as well as anabolism. The growth process requires the production of many building molecules and the production of energy. So in order to growth process to occur, we have to activate our metabolic activity. That's why Thyroxine hormone or thyroid metabolic hormone is very important in growth because there is no growth without energy. It also affects central nervous system and musculoskeletal system development. That's why hypothyroidism may cause dwarfism and mental retardation in a condition called cretinism. The third major effect is enhancing all metabolic activities. It increases many metabolic processes related to carbohydrates, lipids, and other molecules metabolism. So it increases glycolysis, gluconeogenesis, glycogenolysis, carbohydrates absorption in the GI tract, and it increases insulin secretion. Insulin secretion is also important in the growth process. So, during the growth process, secretion of growth hormone activates the process of growth in general, while thyroxine increases the metabolic activity and insulin increases carbohydrates metabolism. That's why growth hormone, thyroxine, and insulin الشجعان الثلاثة are important in the growth process. The second metabolic function of thyroxine is increasing lipid metabolism. This is by increasing lipid mobilization and triacylglyceride hydrolysis. This will increase the plasma-free fatty acids concentration and therefore decreasing lipids and cholesterol concentrations in the plasma. That's why thyroid hormone plays a protective effect against atherosclerosis and other problems. And that's why hypothyroidism is a risk factor for atherosclerosis. Thyroid hormone also affects other metabolic activities like in general increasing vitamins requirements because the thyroid hormone activates all our enzymes. Many enzymes require some cofactors and vitamins. So as a consequence, our body needs more and more vitamins. And if we didn't ingest these vitamins, sometimes we may develop a vitamin deficiency secondary to hyperthyroidism. It also increases basal rate of metabolism as we mentioned previously, and therefore it will decrease body weight, but it's not necessarily decrease body weight because it simply increase appetite also. So someone who develops hyperthyroidism, if he eats a lot, he may not decrease his body weight. Okay. Now let's talk about organ systems effect. In general, increasing metabolic activity will increase the energy demand for the cells. That's why it's going to activate the cardiovascular system by a negative feedback mechanism. So it will increase heart rate, cardiac output, and heart strength. However, thyroid hormones in general have also direct effects on the cardiovascular system by stimulating the heart directly to increase cardiac output and by stimulating the synthesis of new proteins to increase heart strength. However, long-term activation of heart cells by thyroid hormone will activate catabolic enzymes that will lead to myocardial failure. These effects on cardiovascular system do not affect the arterial blood pressure. so it will not affect the diastolic blood pressure. Now, what's the difference between systolic and diastolic blood pressure? Systolic blood pressure is simply the cardiac output. The more the cardiac output, the more the systolic blood pressure. On the other hand, the diastolic blood pressure represents the arterial resistance against blood flow. So here the cardiac output is increased. As a consequence, systolic blood pressure is increased. But the arterial pressure remains the same. So diastolic blood pressure remains the same. Thyroid hormone also increases the rate of respiration because it increases the rate of oxygen consumption and the carbon dioxide production. This will activate respiration process. Thyroid hormone also affects other organ systems other than cardiovascular and respiratory system. It affects the GI tract by activation of all activities of GI tract. That's why hyperthyroidism may cause sometimes diarrhea, and hypothyroidism can cause constipation. It also activates the central nervous system, causing central nervous system overactivation that may result in anxiety, paranoia, and insomnia. Now, the effect of thyroid gland in sleep in general is that the thyroid hormone activates all the activities of the central nervous system and the body, causing exhaustion. However, it has an alert. It activates the central nervous system and prevent someone from sleeping. So someone who has hyperthyroidism will be exhausted, but he cannot sleep. Another effect of the thyroid hormone is causing many musculoskeletal problems like tremors, similar to Parkinson's disease, because of overactivation of synapse that's responsible for production of action potentials in motor neurons. So simply these neurons are more sensitive to stimulation, and therefore the movement will be somehow like tremors. Okay. Now finally, to talk about some glands that are affected by the increase of thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone also affects the endocrine system by increasing the secretion of insulin, as we see in the previous slides, by increasing the carbohydrate metabolisms, and therefore insulin will increase. Thyroid hormone also enhance the growth process. So someone who are still growing now, he needs a lot of calcium. Okay, to increase the blood concentration of calcium, parathyroid hormone will be secreted as a negative feedback mechanism. The third hormone that will be increased by the effect of thyroid hormone is ACTH and cortisol. Why? Okay, we know that thyroxine increases the metabolic activity of the liver. The liver is going to metabolize all steroid hormones and cortisol and whatever. So in general, thyroxine will increase the rate of metabolism of cortisol, increasing, and as a negative feedback, ACTH will increase, and the rate of secretion of cortisol will increase, but not necessarily the blood concentration of cortisol, because of increasing metabolism of cortisol in the liver. The last organ system that's affected by thyroid hormone is the urogenital system. Okay, in general, thyroid hormone is important for sexual functions because it affects many other hormone secretion processes that is required for sexual function. In general, hyperthyroidism causes impotence in males and excessive menstrual bleeding in females, while hypothyroidism causes decreasing libido in males and reduces bleeding during menstrual cycle in females.